Welcome to the Do London Differently podcast. I am your host for this episode, Michael Schilling. This episode was recorded during the London Walking Festival at our Visitors Centre at 80 Mortimer Street. It was an event with David Favers, who's an author, illustrator, map maker, and creator of some amazing London guidebooks. Interviewing David was Des Garrahan, otherwise known as Walking Class Hero, who led 4 walks during the London Walking Festival and also hosted this evening for us. This was really a celebration of David's new book, which is called Green London, which was published in March 2025. But since about 2012, David's been exploring, writing, illustrating guidebooks on subjects such as the Regent's Canal, the Thames River Path, and London's hidden rivers. So I'm just going to go straight into the interview with Des doing an introduction.
London has been given the first ever national park city status.
London, the world's first national park city.
Come and enjoy, because life's too short, really and truly.
And London, wow, what an amazing city.
So, greener,
healthier,
and wilder.
I'm here with David Favers, who's an author and illustrator, and the illustrator is quite important in this combination of a set of London guides to walking. There are 6 of them. Most recent book is Green London. Before we get on to the actual walking guides, I wonder if you might want to tell us a bit about what you did before you were an author and illustrator.
Okay, I trained as a graphic designer, a book designer. My first job in London was not a million miles from here in New Cavendish Street, a little studio we put together books. But I always had an interest in illustration. Even when I was at college, I went to Newcastle upon Tyne Poly, and I always had an interest in illustration, although I wasn't being taught that. So when I came to London, I put together a small portfolio of illustrations and started to pick up work from the likes of Radio Times, Car Magazine, The Listener Magazine, doing corporate brochures. New Scientist was a nice job to go. I did a couple of covers for New Scientist. And it was, a bit of a thrill going into a newsagent and seeing my illustration on there. But it wasn't a book. And so I wasn't making any money as an illustrator. I was making money as a designer. And throughout the 80s, I was working as freelance as a graphic designer for various design companies, and then fell into the wonderful world of interactive CD-ROMs. Do you remember those? With the precursor to the web, where you plugged it into the CD-ROM into your computer, and you clicked on something, a little animation happened. And I ended up working with Dorling Kindersley, who were just moving into this area, thinking this was going to be the big new thing before the internet. And so I was doing a mixture of both illustration, which would then be animated, and then sort of a bit of nepotism. One of the guys who was my boss I'd also been at primary school with many, many years ago. And he said to me, we were talking about the way the projects were being run, and they weren't being run very well. And he said to me, Dave, why don't you do you want to be a project manager? And I thought, I've never done project management in my life. But anyway, I ran it for the project for a while, and then the internet started to grow. So this was like the early to mid 90s. And got to a point where I was just so fed up. We got taken over by an advertising agency. I was working in, again, not far from here, just on Marylebone Road for a company called Traffic. And it was just mad. I was going to Dubai every month, and it was just like jumping on a tube, but tube took 12 hours to get there. And I hated it. And eventually I just said to my wife, she just got promoted, and I said, look, can I stop this? I just want to be an illustrator. I just want to do a book, hopefully. So I started we had 2 children, 2 daughters, and I started, reading stories to them. And I thought, I can do this, I can do these illustrations, I can write a book, yeah. And so I started, and I started to send them to publishers and was getting absolutely nowhere. They were just rejection slip after rejection slip. They were very kind, and we regret, they would say, but good luck with your venture. Anyway, so that's really how I. Do you want me to go on and talk about how I came to do my first book, which was the Regent's Canal?
In a minute.
All right, okay, I'll stop.
So that sort of is, it's both a route in, but not so it isn't the next obvious step.
I've always wanted to write a book, an illustrator book, and probably design the book, but I didn't know what.
Yeah.
I didn't think walking. I didn't. For years I hadn't been thinking, I must do walking guides to London. No, that came later. That was another accident.
So I was going to then say about the whole Regent's Canal. I was originally going to say, well, that's quite a traditional start, but funny enough, it isn't, is it? Because there aren't hardly any guides to the Regent's Canal.
No.
And that in of itself is quite an interesting thing, I think. So, so you're used to rejection slips from things like that, because despite what it might look like on the top shelf there, and the fact that you probably bump into quite a lot of people who've written books and stuff like that, entering the market for walking guides is notoriously difficult. It is a market that is in many ways saturated with books and options to do things in that sort of way. So it's one of those things that you might not necessarily, like if you thought about it again, you thought, I don't know if I'd have been rushing into that. But it obviously worked with the Regent's Canal one, because so you had the idea and did it and went to a publisher, or did you get the publisher to okay it before you?
Oh yeah. Well, what happened was, a friend of mine, about 2009, we had a friend of mine just said he had proposed to do a cycling tour, a 2-stadium tour we called it, because he was an Arsenal supporter and I'm a Tottenham supporter. Thank you for your commiserations. It was he's off. So he organised this tour around sort of North London, part of which involved coming down York Way and then onto the Regent's Canal. And I'd never been down the Regent's Canal, and so we cycled. We got to as far as the tunnel, the Islington Tunnel. Had to go over the hill to the side, Duncan Street, and back onto the canal. And I was just amazed. It was just, almost a road to Damascus. There was just all this historic stuff, and I'd never seen it before. It was, I don't know. The only bit I've been up the Regent's Canal before that must have been the bit in Regent's Park. It was just, you're walking around Regent's Park and you end up on the canal sometimes. And so I thought, this is great. And this wanting to do a book idea came back to me, and I thought, I wonder if there's any guidebooks to this. So I went to Stanford's and I went to the London Canal Museum to see what they had. And there was books on the Regent's Canal. They were very wordy and very worthy, but there weren't, some this size and black and white photographs. And if you wanted to know the cost of how much it cost to build that particular lock in pounds, shillings and pence, it would tell you. But I didn't want that sort of level of information. And I thought, well, there's no guide, so I'll think about doing this myself. So I put together. It took me about a year to get around to doing it, but I put it together. I think it was about 2010 or 2011, early 2011. I put a proposal to Francis Lincoln because I knew they did travel guides, and I thought, they might at least. So I submitted 3 double-page spreads and a synopsis, and within a week I had a letter back, or it was an email, saying, yeah, we love it, let's do it. I was gobsmacked. I was expecting a rejection, so I would go do the rounds. Anyway, so it took a few months to sort out the contract, and we did it. And it was published in 2012. And in fact, I had a book launch on the 200th anniversary of the first cutting of the canal on a barge called Word on the Water, which is a floating, you might probably seen it, a floating bookshop. It's now based in King's Cross. Well worth a visit if you've never been. What it made me aware of is I didn't know London at all. I'd lived here, this time I'd lived in London for 30 years. And I thought, I don't know anything. We all tend to live in bubbles. The place where you live, you get to know the restaurants and the bars and the cinemas and theatres and what else. And then you might commute to work, but you'll commute to work by tube, so you don't see what's up above, and you can't spend the time walking to and from work because it could be 5, 6, 7, 8 miles. And then you get to work and, you know, get to know all that bit. So I was thinking, you know, we all just live in these little bubbles. I need to get out. I need to explore more. And one thing I did notice when I was travelling, researching the canal book, was there was lots of several hidden rivers. There's one that is in a conduit that goes over the Regent's Canal, Chalbert Bridge. It's a footbridge, but there's also a conduit, a pipe that carries the Tyburn. I didn't know this. And then I discovered the River Fleet goes under the Regent's Canal in Camden. Really? So this was, you know, pushing me towards that book. And then also the second book I proposed was the Thames Path book and Hidden Rivers. Those are the two. So I got contracts for them and started work on those two. And they came out about 2015 and 2017. But as I say, yeah, I just started researching London. I started walking a lot more just because I felt I should and could. I even went down to South London. You know, it wasn't too bad. I took my passport.
And we let you come out.
And we did let you. Yeah, thank you, Des. Yes. And it was just, you know, look, you know, it was just. Well, you did that walk of mine, you know, the Peckham down to Crystal Palace, and it was just a revelation to me. And I think one thing that was coming back to, I'll come back to Green London later, how I actually did that. And I started that one probably 45 years ago, I think, spiritually anyway. But yeah, I just wanted to explore more of London.
So, which we'll come on to in a minute. But so when you did the Regent's Canal, or you started doing that, did you then find it a lot more work than you'd anticipated, or a lot? Yeah.
I mean, each book, well, Canal book took me about a year. Hidden Rivers and London, Thames Path took me about 18 months. Green London took me 2 years. Yeah. It's a bigger book. There's just, you know, and I am the writer, the illustrator, and the designer. There's nobody else involved. And I like to think that if it was 3 different people doing that job, the books, dare I say this, wouldn't be as nice. They wouldn't be, I sort of, you know, I dovetail the illustrations together, you know, I wrap text around illustrations. See if I can find another better example. Yeah, I mean, you know, just sort of there, just the luxury of just having a single column illustration and the map over here, and no 2 pages are ever alike. You can go through all my books. I defy you to find 2 pages that are the same. So each double page spread is self-contained. I don't carry text over onto the next page. If you just want to walk that double page spread, which is, and I give you the distance on each one in kilometres, that's 1.6 kilometres, you can so do. It's not one of these books where you've got to keep your finger where the map is, and then you start going through the book and where's that page? Oh, I've lost the map. Everything is all on one double page spread entirely. I got this, I mean, subliminally, I like to think, but from Alfred Wainwright, the illustrator guides to the Lakelands. He did exactly the same, and there's a quote I have of his where he says he keeps everything on one page because he doesn't want you to be following the copy like you would if you were reading a novel, and therefore ignoring the illustrations. So that's one way I have of working and the one thing I want bête noire of mine is text descriptions of describing where you go. It might say turn left by the White Swan pub and right by the Black Bollard, because you know the pub will soon become a branch of Lidl's and the bollard will be painted another colour. You know, but there it all is in print and has to be updated. So, you know, I try to create, you know, bespoke maps that are very clear. Yeah. So,
and it obviously is a thing, and it's evolved, isn't it? Because in my looking from the Regent's Canal through the Thames Path, they become a little more wordy, but they're still not overwhelmingly wordy in that way, are they? But certainly there is more text in yes. Green London than I've been.
True. I mean, I try to strike a balance between text and illustrations. I don't want. I actually use a small little Excel sheet, spreadsheet to count the number of words. I have to be so precise in the number of words. I cannot exceed 700 words per double page spread. If I do, then the illustrations and the maps just have to get smaller. I think that for me, the two books where there was far more text than images was The Diverse and Bloody London, simply because these were human stories. These were about real people, about murders, and I couldn't cut them down sufficiently. I thought there was, a fair balance of text to images in Green London, but it is a battle, and sometimes I just have to jettison a story. I really, I think, this is, I get so attached to these stories, and I've got to get them all in, but I can't. I just haven't got the space to fit everything in, because the publishers will give me. Regent's Canal was only 72 pages. This is 160 pages, including prelims. So I've got to do a sort of bit of a calculation first. I wanted to do another chapter in Green London, but I just couldn't fit it in. I wanted to do the parks, a little pocket park, the squares in central London, and do a guided tour around them. But I ran out of space. I also ran out of time.
There you go, people. If any of you are keen to write a book about guides, so that the process is quite interesting. Then, so you arrived at the process from like doing the walking and finding that that's what you needed to do on that basis.
Yeah.
And the total kilometres on the 2 pages. Does Wayne write? Obviously wouldn't do it in kilometres, but
I said it wouldn't. Good God, no.
Did he have that?
I don't think he does. No.
From my experience of that is an example of something that is a real difference maker, and it was probably like something you might have just fallen into.
I think I'm obsessive. You ask my wife Sheila, she'll tell you I'm obsessive. I just like that sort of data. This is what I would like to see in if it's my map, my book. I want to show detail. So I tell you the total distance at the beginning of the chapter. So Primrose Hill, Regent's Park, 7.2 kilometres. But then I break it down. So thinking, well, people might not want to walk the whole of that. They might just want to do a small section. So they might just do 2. They know exactly what they're in for. I don't. It's an easy thing to do, and so why not do it? I thought, and just show them what there is to see through my illustrations. As you're walking around Regent's Park or wherever else in London.
So, for the people who aren't that familiar with it, so the first 2 books are the Regent's Canal and the Thames Path, and it's not the whole of the Thames Path; it's a part of London's Thames Path.
20 miles.
20 miles of it, and it's so you would again think, if I was writing a guide, a walks guide, those are perhaps not routes I'd choose because you can just follow them without a book, really.
Of course.
And that, but it is a remarkable thing about how this works, because people obviously take that on the walk that they're doing at the Regent's Canal and Thames Path, and they are looking at things, like that you point out in the book about it. So, and obviously successful. And now we arrive at the Hidden Rivers, and for people who don't know, David is actually a friend of mine, but we got to know each other about the time after Hidden Rivers was, just after it was published, because I was working on a project of, for a friend of mine about doing guided walks along them, which is, how I did that. And I'd go out and walk the Hidden Rivers, and this is back in the days when I used to use social media before it became the cesspool that it is now. And you noticed that I was tweeting about it, and you just got in touch with me, didn't you?
Yeah.
About that. So we then you
came on the one of the walks.
Yeah, as I say, you
Hackney Brook.
Yeah, kindly asked if you could come along. And I thought, well, of course you can. Like you've written it in the book about that. But that is a departure from the first 2, really, in the way that people need.
Need to be guided.
You needed to be guided on that.
It wasn't a physical route like the canal or the river. Yes, I agree.
And it also, not only do you need to be guided in that way, they're not always intuitive, are they?
No,
because many of the rivers go in people's back gardens and things like that. So it's so that was almost like a big leap.
It
I'd have
was.
thought.
I never thought of it. I've never thought of it like that before at all. No, I mean I did. You're right. The two waterways were, you can follow without a guidebook. I never actually thought of that until now. But you're right. It was probably more of a challenge because I then had to research. I had to go to various libraries and find old maps and find where the routes went. I mean, there were several other books. I wasn't on my own here on hidden rivers. There's Tom Bolton's book. But Tom's is good. There's the Talling one, which is more photographs. It's not really a guide, but you need an A to Z to follow his route. But yeah, what I did find was there was contradictory. Well, I was looking down. I could look down a river valley. If you're walking down a road and the road's coming down either side, you're on a river valley because they're just running down. But then sometimes the river has been moved because the Thames Water or its predecessor wanted to, they don't like meandering things, they're just straight pipes. So do I show where the river originally ran or do I show the straight pipe? Well, I try to show the original meandering route. But it was difficult and there was a lot more research into actually, I couldn't just rely, I wasn't going to rip off Tom Bolton's book and say this. No, I went to research my own, and just physically looking down, would walk down a street and think, is that road dipping down there? And I almost felt like asking people because sometimes my eyes were just going, I'm sure it's dipping down. But excuse me, do you think this road dips? No, I didn't quite get to that level, but it was feeling like that at times. I wasn't sure, but contour maps. I found a wonderful contour map which helped me just of London without the buildings all over it. Yeah, that was.
You're quite obsessive.
I am obsessive.
So, and again, looking at it as a set, it is quite. I think it stands out that, of course, once you're following something that mostly you can't see at all, amongst this, sure. You've got much more free rein for the illustrations, haven't you?
Yeah.
And it's sort of really, it adds something. So I don't want to knock Tom Bolton either. I know him, and but I don't know him as well as you. But his guides to it are dense. It's about. You've got to go 200 metres down here and you turn right and then you cross over the road here and you do that sort of thing. And it's just like page and page of text with virtually nothing else in it. And it's sort of like, so you find yourself, really wishing, you could raise your head above the book, really, to be quite honest about it. So it really works. And it's so, you're sort of finding that way, haven't you? And then you found that it's you've got something that really releases the sort of illustrative part of it. About that. And has your style changed over the
years? God, yes. I think I've proposed to Bloomsbury, who are now printing the Regent's Canal. I've asked to redraw it. Sorry to say, but my style, and I didn't bring any copies. I haven't got no copies with me today. But
that's a rare collector's item thing.
It is. Get the first edition, second edition. Well, the third edition will change if they let me do it. My style started to develop with Thames Path, and has just incrementally, I feel it improved. I work digitally. All these are done with tablet in Photoshop, Illustrator, and a thing called Painter. Just simply because it's just expedient. I can scale them, I can blow them up, I can reduce them. Whereas if there were, paintings in gouache and acrylics, I'd have to scan them in and then blow them up. And they're all layered documents as well. If you know anything about Photoshop, it's all layered. And I can just take a layer out. If the shadow's just a bit too big, I can just push it away in a matter of seconds. Whereas if I had to paint it out, oh God. So it was, but the skills that I developed in the 90s working for these multimedia companies, I was able to use to produce the books. That said, I'm working on a new book where I've gone back to painting and drawing again. But we'll come back to that later.
So that funny enough is a question that I get asked quite a lot about you. Do you actually sketch while you're out? So I said, well, he's never done it when I've been with
No,
him in that sort of-
I would be on my own, but I don't have the time.
No.
It's really, I'm looking for things, I'm looking for clues, I'm looking for signs, I'm just checking the route is right. I'm checking, I have to, once I've done the route and I've laid out the book, I go and walk the route again because I have to just check that what I've written, say, Oxford Street, I might have written as Oxford Road. I don't mean Oxford Street here, but another. It's so easy just to get something wrong, a naming. You must know what I'm talking about. Just you think you know what the name is, and you think yeah. Oh no, it isn't. Nope, got to change that. Publishers are good. They proof everything, of course, and I haven't got time for sketching. I wish I had. It'd be lovely, but as I said, this one took me 2 years. I take photographs. I work from photographs. That's it. But the new book, sometime soon, is going to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've changed the way of working. But it's not going to be a guidebook for now. Yeah.
And so, one of the other things I was wanted to explore about it. So you talked about going to Newcastle Poly.
Yeah.
And you're obviously a northerner.
I am a northerner.
In that Durham way, as far as
I was born in. She's here to protect me. I was born in Darlington, County Durham. At the age of 4, family moved to York, and what's left of my northern accent is probably Yorkshire rather than Darlington. I wish I had a northeast accent. How weird, pet. Thank you.
So, but you're obviously a proud Londoner, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I love the place. Yeah.
And it comes out in your illustrations and in your thing, and definitely it comes out in the pub.
Yeah. I've lived in London 46 years now, and my children were born here. I can't. I've had friends move away. I can't think of moving away. Why? I'd go stir crazy. There's so much to do, and I still haven't seen half of it. It's endless. It's fabulous.
And would you say the project that you've been engaged on all these years has only increased that sort of
just finding little little alleyways or around the city of London. That was a book I wanted to work on, but it was too niche. It's the alleyways, the snickleways through the city of London, and just navigating those and the history that's connected with it all. But
do you need to explain snickle for the?
Oh, sorry, snickle is a Yorkshire term for an alley, a snickleway. But you go around the country and all these little alleyways have different names.
Ginnels, cats.
Exactly, there you go. So I think I did talk to the publishers about this, but they were too niche, nice. But I think someone's done a map of it. The other lot that do maps. Them.
You've got competitors.
Yeah, and I don't mean OS. But they do brutalist maps of London and them. I think they've done one of the alleyways of London.
And you take that whole passion for London into supporting Spurs.
I do, of course. I even had to adopt a London team. I loved football, but the Sporting Darlington, who went into liquidation, was just too much. Or even York City, I couldn't do that. Sorry, we're going off on a tangent here, but my neighbour came up with a season ticket about 2000 for Spurs. And he said, "Do you want to share it?" I said, "Yeah." I was looking for a team. I couldn't go and follow Arsenal at the time because they were the glory boys. They were the invincibles, and I thought that's just too easy. I'm not hitching my wagon, and I have no regrets.
You mean that?
Stop it now.
So, but it is relevant to the book.
We are still in Europe.
Because you do have little references to Spurs in.
I do.
Yes,
if you care to look through some of my.
So it's worth a scan through if you're interested in that sort of thing to find.
There are little references to
Yeah.
even slightly anti-Arsenal messages as well, but they're very subtle and they're very hidden. No publishers even spotted them yet. They are there. So yes.
So, let's talk a bit more about Green London.
Yeah.
Because that is it's a project, that's a big ambitious project,
it was.
wasn't it?
It was just, having done the other 5, thinking, I know how green is London. I think it's something like 50%. If you include all the parks and all the greenery and the rivers, it's something like 50%. There's 8 million trees, almost 1 tree per person. If you want in London, go and get yours. But there was a thing that happened to me when I first moved to London back in 1979. I was due to go out for dinner that night, and I was living in Muswell Hill, and I'd left my checkbook and check card. This is how long ago it was. Check card. I mean, some people here won't even know what a check card is, but no. And I'd left it at work, just round the corner in New Cavendish Street. And I thought, it was a nice day. It was a Saturday morning. I thought, I'll walk into London. I'm in no hurry. I'll walk. And near where I lived in Muswell Hill, there was this old railway track that used to connect Ali Pali down to Finsbury Park when the Alexandra Palace was a going concern as an entertainment centre. And I thought, well, people are walking and cycling up now. I'll go down there, and it went connect then into Highgate Wood, walk across Highgate, and then all the way across Hampstead Heath. A little bit of tarmac in between to get to Primrose Hill, Regent's Park, and down in here. And I didn't think any more of it until about 40 years ago. I thought 4 years ago when I started thinking about this book, and I reference it in the introduction to the book, that I'd suddenly thought, yeah, it's nice to walk on, even though you're in one of the biggest cities in the world. You can still walk a green route around London. And so really that's what I was trying to do here, is showing you not just the big parks like Hyde Park, Regent's Park, etc., but how to link to them. Lower Lee Valley, for example, how just link all that together to get you down to the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. So that's what I set out to do in writing this book. And there's 14 walks that I've interconnected. Not just big parks, but found little routes, green routes, to put them all together.
And so, for the people who don't know that, if you approach anybody like a council or somebody like TfL or the government about this, is one of their criteria for developing walking routes is to link green space. That's what they say that they want to do about it. They sometimes say it, and it's quite difficult to achieve it, but it is, and it absolutely does that. And some of that goes back to some of the other strategic routes we've got in London, which is like the Capital Ring and the London Loop, which there is that there is that desire to link it in green space, which isn't always intuitive, is it? As you'll know, because you've probably walked around and thought, now I've got to find like a green space to link this.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Some didn't work. Some I tried and just couldn't find the link.
So when you told me that like that was going to be your next, and probably you'd have a pause or if not stop on that basis. Yeah. I thought, so you got. I mean, you didn't talk to me about the number, but you must have had double that number almost that you could have possibly put in.
Yeah.
In that way about it.
Ones I just rejected. I mean, I mentioned the parks, the squares in London, just connecting them because they've got tons of history connected to them. But it just couldn't quite make it into another book
Not a great question, but people ask it. I mean, have you got a favourite route in there that you?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's one just, it's the one from Ali Pali down to Finsbury Park along the walk, the parkway, because I lived there for a long time. I still live in North London, not far from that route. So I think I've probably walked that one more than any others with friends and family. That's my favourite walk, without a doubt. Yeah, thank you.
Well, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
After the talk, we had a short Q&A, and I've picked out a few questions which David answered.
The next book, well, it's the Thames Foreshore. Now, when I was writing London Thames Path, occasionally I would just drop down onto the foreshore. And I just thought, it's a different world down there. Honestly, once the tide's out, obviously. Wait for the tide to go out, otherwise it's a very different world. And it's quieter down there. There's no traffic, apart from boats going up and down, obviously. But what piqued my interest was these huge sluice gates, which also came out of hidden rivers. So where the hidden rivers come into the Thames, they don't just flow naturally, especially in the centre of London. I mean, Beverley Brook does flow more or less naturally. But the Fleet, the Tyburn, they have these huge sluice gates. Now, it's not water falling out all the time because the Metropolitan Board of Works in the 19th century developed a whole network of drainage sewers to prevent nasty stuff falling into the Thames, because in the 1850s Parliament was shut down for several days when there was the Great Stink. So a lot of the water gets intercepted and it goes off to Beckton to be processed. Now, at the moment, now that the super sewer has arrived, this isn't going to happen anymore. But until very, very recently, any excess rainwater, if a heavy rain, water would come out of these sluice gates. So they were useful because there was just excess water was coming into the Thames. Most of it was rainwater, 95%, 99% was actual rainwater. The rest of it was grey water, so like water from your shower. But occasionally nasties got through, people reconnected their toilets to this particular grey water sewer. So it could be quite unpleasant at times. So there's these huge metal sluice gates. Now I've noticed they've started to close. There's one at on the south bank. The Ephra is now appears to be closed because they built over it with the super sewer. They've put some new infrastructure in front of it. So they're disappearing fast. So I'm trying to record these, and as I think I said earlier, I'm not doing them digitally. I'm drawing and I'm going back to my roots. I'm drawing and painting and pen and ink and sitting and drawing things in situ, so quite spontaneous. My publisher knows about it, but they haven't sort of said yay or nay, and frankly I don't care. I just want to do this book. I want to do it under my own steam. I don't want to be pressurized, because with all my books I've got deadlines and I try to hit the deadline, and sometimes holidays have to be missed because I just can't go away, and I've said to hell with that. My wife's finally retired yesterday. She's had it for the second time in her life. She's retired. I wouldn't hold my breath though. She'll be going back. She works for the NHS, and we like to travel, and I don't want to be confined by I've got this deadline to finish. I've got to get this book finished. So it's me. It's not a guidebook. Well, it could be a guidebook, but if you see an interesting thing that you see along the Thames, and you want to go down the steps. Which reminds me, I've got a question for you later about that. Just bits of timber that stick out there. You think, what the hell is that? And then I remembered used to be a ferry in the city of London, and that's long redundant for steamboats used to tie up here. And all you can see at low tide is just these stumps. But there's a bit of history there, so there's some text, not as dense as my other books, but just a little bit of background of what's going on. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Whilst other people think about questions, because I noticed you've, I don't know if you've always done that, but you're actually doing some art classes, or you do life.
Oh, I keep my, I try to keep it real, because I was doing so much digital work. I thought I better go back to doing some life drawing, which I used to enjoy when I was at college and foundation. So I attend life drawing classes every week. Where I'm working in charcoal and dirt, bits of newsprint, and getting my hands dirty, keeping it real, as it were, because I was working digitally, and which is ever so clean and precise, and you don't get dirty. So I've started doing that. I'm also doing portraits at home, just of friends and family. I should do one of you, actually. Okay. And they only take me an hour, these portraits. Life drawing, I spend 2 or 3 hours doing life drawing, just to keep it real. I enjoy drawing. I've enjoyed drawing since I was that big. It's therapy for me. I escape. You forget everything when you're drawing. Even when I'm out, on holiday, I'll carry a sketchbook with me and just draw something that interests me. I mean, it'll never go into a book, but it's just, it's what I enjoy doing more than anything else in the world, I think. Yeah. But yeah, I think of them as pocketbooks. I mean, Wainwright's is definitely pocketbook, but he was working in pen and ink. I mean, I subconsciously emulated Wainwright.
Not his temperament, though.
Or his sexism.
No.
No. Oh God, no. He wouldn't be here tonight if he wanted to. No. And it's rather strange, but the person who wrote his biography wrote the foreword to Green London, Hunter Davies, which I was really delighted when Hunter agreed to write the foreword to the book. He'd written several books about London parks and things, and I had a little way in to Hunter Davies through his daughter. I know his daughter, and yeah.
Another Spurs connection.
Another Spurs connection there. Well, with my new book, I will be featuring mudlarking, not extensively, but yes, I can't ignore it. And there's that new exhibition at the Museum of London, Docklands, has just started. So it is quite prevalent. There is a big restriction now because and they're blaming social media for this, for the mudlarking. That there's several mudlarkers who are big on Instagram and are doing lots of videos, and lots of people are now going down and rummaging around on the foreshore. So they've limited, I think, to 5,000 licenses. What I would like to know is who the hell polices it. Yeah. What's to stop? I go down there and I see things, and I think, well, I could take that home. No one's ever. I don't tend to. I found little bits of pipe, which are 10 a penny, down on the Thames. But it's become a thing on social media that people are now, in their droves, especially during COVID. It started. It's interesting. It is supposed to be the biggest archaeological site in the world, I think, is the River Thames, because it's tidal and lots of stuff is preserved through the silt and the mud that's there. But I don't know how the hell they police it. I never see anybody in a uniform going, see your license, please. A few years ago, and I've done both circular walks, and I mean, as you say, you put a glass. So I got this map of North London. It was just before COVID. We knew COVID was coming. So the guy who, in fact, we did the Regent's Canal route with, we plotted a route. We got a compass, a big compass, and just did an arc. So we had to go down every street, regardless of, as long as it wasn't a cul-de-sac. And you couldn't go through anybody's garden, but you had to stick to public routes. And we did about a 10-mile route around North London following this circle. I've also done linear walks. So I've walked due south from my house, and it's amazing where it takes you past. I went south is going through Lord's Cricket Ground, or if we didn't go through the cricket ground, but walk around the side of it, and just takes you down little tiny streets you would never ever go down, but you might find something interesting. And I think what you're saying is great. Just doing a circle or a linear route or a cross, east, west, north, south. Yeah.
So I'm conscious you asked David and not me, and Michael's heard you say that. So some of the things I say to people is you maybe want to decide whether it's a journey or a destination. Because frankly, the majority of people walk destination to point to point about that. And I'm very much a journey person. I don't, that sort of completionist type thing doesn't interest very much to me. But so that's one of the things you have to do. If you are really keen, and you obviously are, if you're going to turn right when you see something red, try to work out a spiral route. A spiral route is really quite interesting as a task to see if you can sort of work out a route to do it. But it does take you through to an awful lot of places within that circle or that thing that you would not normally have strung together in that way about it. If you're talking about an area, and I'm guessing it's a biggish area but not huge, I mean that will give you some other, like a sort of different approach to things like that about it?
I mean, there was other ones. There were also routes outside London that I wanted to do, from sort of Hillingdon. You know where those mounds on the A40? Yeah, exactly. I wanted to start there, and there was a route I could see, but I just ran out of space and time. There could be a volume 2. In fact, I think I initially proposed going all Wainwright to do it as a series of books, but publishers wouldn't let me. They said, I could do North London, South London, East, West London, in the way that Wainwright chopped up the Lake District. Probably would have meant thinner volumes, I think. So no, that didn't happen. But there is scope for a second edition, a second volume, I should say. Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you,
David.
Des.
It's really interesting, and thank you, Michael, for the
Thank you,
use
Michael.
of the room and everything else like that. And I'm guessing some of us are going to go down the pub. I don't know which one we're going to go to.
That's it for this week. Thank you very much for listening. We've got lots more episodes from Walking Month coming soon, plus some new exciting episodes as well. I've been Michael Shilling. This has been the Do London Differently podcast.
Come and enjoy, because life's too short, really and truly.
And London, wow, what an amazing city.
So, greener,
healthier,
And wilder.